Hi, everybody. This is Cheryl Kleeman again with OKSTATE Transfer Talks. We're here today with Scott Alexander. Scott is our Assistant Director of Student Support at Oklahoma State University. He received his BA in Family Psychology from Oklahoma Baptist and his MS in College Student Development from OSU. Scott's background in higher education includes work in student success programs, Title IX education and prevention, campus food security initiatives, and undergraduate instruction in leadership studies. Scott is currently working on his PhD at Baylor in their higher education studies and leadership program. So excited to see you here today, Scott.
Yeah, thanks, Cheryl. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So student support and conduct. A lot of students hear that and they think, oh, wow, that just means you're in trouble. Mm-hmm. What is student support and conduct?
Yeah, excellent question. I always tell students to think about it in terms of student support and conduct being a team of individuals who collectively are interested in supporting student success, student well-being, providing student support. Yes, it's going to look different depending on who you engage with in our office. We'll talk more in depth about our student support team, so I won't say too much about our particular sector of that, but student conduct, while you may be sitting down with them because of a violation of student code of conduct and having an issue there that needs to be resolved or addressed, those individuals, my colleagues kind of on that team, are still engaged in serving student success and student education. So yes, there may be an accountability component to their work, but in working with them, I can say with confidence that they are always taking a lens of where can the student learn, where are those learning opportunities, where are those growth opportunities. So anyway, they're engaging in that work in a different way. The same is true for One is Too Many. Yes, if you're meeting with Claire Leffingwell, our One is Too Many coordinator, likely it's going to be centered around some experience or concern around domestic violence, sexual violence, and yet that support element is there. And so anyway, we're just a team of individuals who at our core are collectively about student support, student education, student learning, and student growth.
So I said it a little bit earlier, but a lot of times when students think about or even hear the word student support and conduct, their immediate thought is, oh no, I'm in trouble. Mm-hmm. But that may not always be the case. So what other resources and services do you provide as part of student support and conduct?
Yeah. Excellent. So we can talk a little bit more about our student support team. So as you mentioned in my introduction, that's the team of individuals I have the privilege of working with. Student support has a number of elements to it. Kind of the key thing that people will identify student support with ties into our care reporting process. So we're really into advancing a culture of care here at Oklahoma State. And so we encourage faculty, staff, students to respond to colleagues, students where they're expressing a concern. If you as a staff member are working with a student and recognize that that student is experiencing a challenge that maybe needs some additional support, we encourage individuals like yourself or faculty to fill out a care report that will come to us, and we'll look at those concerns and address them and reach out to students to provide that care, to get them connected to case management, to get them connected to other supports and resources, not only that we have at our disposal, but really across the campus. So that's a key element of what we do is addressing concerns that students are experiencing or challenges that they're experiencing, whether that be academic in nature, whether that be something that's impacting their social adjustment here at OSU, their mental health and well-being, their physical health and well-being, anything that's a facet of their student experience here. If there's a challenge or a barrier that they're experiencing, we are equipped want and desire to help students address those things. So that's a key component of what we do. We have a staff of case managers who are embedded in different colleges here at the university, and so they even have those connections and inroads into college-specific resources and supports and interventions. So that's, like I said, a key component of what we do. Another element of student support is I have the privilege of supervising our coordinator of basic needs, Brian Blevins, who is spearheading our initiatives in addressing issues of food insecurity on our campus, financial insecurity, housing insecurity, and he also advises our off-campus student association, oversees our food security committee with SGA. So anyway, that's another key component of what we do. So yeah, that kind of gives you at least the basic overview of kind of the student support side of student support and conduct.
Thank you, Scott. That's fantastic. When you start talking about food insecurity or housing insecurity, and you look at it through the lens of transfer students, so many of our transfer students come from such diverse backgrounds. Many of them have families. The majority of them live off campus. And so they may be reticent to ask for help because they've been doing it on their own for so long. So asking for help can be very hard for them. So how do you make sure that when students request assistance, that interaction is kept private and that they're assured of assistance without feeling like they failed in some way?
Yeah. Good. Excellent question, Cheryl. I love this question because I think it brings up a few key things that are important for us to address as an institution. One is, and I used to say this in my previous iteration here at OSU when I was over in the Lasso Center, is that our resources exist because we expect and anticipate that students will use them. Like we have made note of a need in the student experience here at OSU, and out of that recognition of a need for student student success, for student well-being, we have created these resources, these systems to help to address this issue. Food insecurity is something that is top of mind at institutions all across the country. I think it's important to kind of address that stigma that attaches itself to food insecurity for students. I think it's helpful for students here at OSU to understand that while it can seem like an individualized experience and an isolating experience of, am I the only person, or am I only one of a select few they're experiencing food insecurity? I want to address that stigma and say this is something that is the experience of a large number of students at four-year institutions like ours. Depending on the research you read, that range of students experiencing food insecurity at four-year institutions is anywhere from 25% all the way pushing up to like 60%. And so it's not just one person or one group of students who are experiencing it. It's so many students, like I said, upwards of 60%. And that can be food insecurity that is episodic. Like I had a short month where my paycheck didn't have enough to cover my food needs, and so I really need help right now and just right now. Or it can be chronic in nature, where it's like I'm needing help on a consistent basis. So anyway, all that to say, I want to like address that stigma head on and let students know you're not alone in this experience. This is why resources exist here, because we recognize that need. We want to respond to that need. And so out of that, here at OSU, we have a number of initiatives, including Pete's Pantry downstairs in the basement of the Student Union. We have Student Stash Network, which is a partnership with our Student Government Association, and they have locations across campus. We have the Pete's Eats program, which is a food recovery program, which is, involves a partnership between Campus Life and OSU Dining, where they are repackaging food every day that we can redistribute to students who have need. And we partner with Our Daily Bread here in Stillwater. There are our food and resource center here in Stillwater. Without their partnership, Pete's Pantry wouldn't exist in the way it does. It wouldn't be staffed in the way it does. It wouldn't have the inventory that it does. And so we partner with them in promoting community events. They have mobile market every month. They have OSU night at Our Daily Bread every month, where it's specifically for OSU students to go to their location and do their shopping. And so anyway, these exist, and we promote them because we want students to use them. Now, you've asked about kind of that anonymity aspect, and I understand that is an important thing for students. So one, I'll say this, in terms of like data that we track, we do, for students that use Pete's Pantry, we do ask that they swipe their student ID. It's not a requirement. If you want to come into Pete's Pantry and be completely anonymous, you absolutely can be. We're never going to coerce a student and say, you can't get this resource, you can't make use of this resource unless we know who you are. I'll make the argument for swiping in because I think it helps us to tell our broader story of the food insecurity experience here at OSU. We're really careful and conscientious with that data. I'll use you as an example, Cheryl. So if you come and use Pete's Pantry and swipe, and I'm not going to like put in a report to President Shrum or anybody else. Cheryl Kleeman came 5 times this month. I mean, we don't use your individual data in that way. We use it kind of in aggregate of like, here's the bigger picture of what the student food insecurity experience looks like. So if that helps to kind of quell some of that fear, know that like the data we do collect, we're very careful and conscientious with it. We're using it to kind of using a broad stroke kind of way. It's not like individualized where it's like, okay, we're going to pinpoint you. It does help us to do some targeted outreach to you as a student, where we can kind of send you things that might be of use to you, whether that's food events on campus or things that you might want to be involved in. So it does help us in that way, but we're really, really careful. Now, like I said, with Pete's Pantry, if you want to come and use Pete's Pantry and you want to remain anonymous, you absolutely can be. We're never going to go coerce a student and say, you've got to swipe in order to use this resource. We'll have you swipe in as an anonymous guest, and you're welcome to come and use it. If anonymity is really critical, Student Stash Network, like I mentioned before, is a partnership between us and Student Government Association, and those are shelving units across campus. We have one here in Campus Life in 211, Student Union 211. There's also one in the library, and there's one over in the FRC, the Family Resource Center, kind of on the residential side of campus. And that really is, those are shelving units that students can kind of just come and grab what they need, take what they need. It's more geared for that experience of just something you can grab on the go. Over here in 211, I saw the other day, we have like noodle bowls that you just add water and heat up. You can do that probably in your department, outside your classroom, whatever. There are applesauce cups and, things that are just kind of more snack-like in nature, where it's like, okay, this is like a stopgap for me. I haven't had a chance to eat today. I'm not feeling like I have the nourishment I need to make it through my afternoon classes or whatever. And so you come and take what you need. You're not swiping in, you're not telling us who you are. We are working to kind of still put some feedback mechanisms in there, so you can scan us and tell us about your experience, because again, we're trying to really get a clear picture and tell the story of food insecurity here at OSU, because we have data that shows that food insecurity is an experience of a lot of students here, upwards of 50%. And so we just want to understand that story so that we can tell it to people that can help us make a difference in that way. So anyway, yeah. So does that answer that question? I hope so. I went off on a long trail.
Yes. No, that was fantastic. That covered the food insecurity question very, very well.
Right.
But I think one of the other things that we see a lot in Stillwater, I mean, we have an 80% rental community here.
Yeah.
And our students get in year-long leases, 6-month leases. There's a variety of experiences our students can have as being housing insecure, and the contributing factors to that. And I know one of the things that we routinely get in here is if there's an issue with the landlord or something like that, we routinely get those types of questions. But housing insecurity is huge too, especially when some of our students have families and children they're trying to take care of, especially when many of our transfer students, if you really think about it, you know, the backgrounds that our students are coming from and the different lived experiences, some of them don't have any support network at all, just none.
Yeah.
So when we're talking about that housing insecurity piece and some of those other more student specific instances, what other types of aid can they get? And, you know, I've had students ask me about legal aid. I've had students ask me about tenant rights. I've had students ask me about all of these things, and I do refer them to different people, but it's nice to hear all of that encapsulated in one city.
So I've mentioned Brian Blevins and kind of his work. He is the advisor for Off-Campus Student Association and has a GA Gracie who works with our Off-Campus Student Association. So a lot of times, as you mentioned, a lot of transfer students understandably are in their off-campus experience at the time that they come to us. So Off-Campus Student Association, I would really promote that as a place for transfer students who live off campus to congregate, engage. I think there's so much opportunity there, not only to get answers to questions and to figure out what advocacy avenues there are in addressing concerns with landlords. Because you know, as you've mentioned, Cheryl, you'll kind of refer people to legal aid here in Payne County, or refer students to certain parts of kind of Oklahoma legislation that will deal with renters' rights. I think Brian and his team are really well equipped to assist in that process too. And so I would really heavily encourage transfer students as they come, one, as they're looking for a place to become involved and become engaged in a group of meaning for them, but also as a place to kind of like get resources and learn more about the contours of kind of living off campus and the challenges that might be present there. I think Off-Campus Student Association is a really great place for folks to land, and you can always reach out to Brian, and he and Gracie will kind of gladly have conversations with students about those concerns, and kind of help resource them and help work them through what those concerns are.
Thank you, Scott. That's very helpful.
Yeah.
So I mentioned it just a second ago that many of our transfer students, they may not have the typical family structure. They may not have the parents, the grandparents, spouse, etc., who they have to depend on, who can help them out. And they may not even be used to what that support structure feels like or looks like.
Mm-hmm.
And for our students, sometimes like I mentioned earlier, it's especially hard sometimes just to ask for that help. Because our students are so self-sufficient. So what would that process look like? I mean, we hear all the time, if you see something, say something.
Right.
When it comes to submitting a care report, or a student on the other side of a care report who has had one submitted about them, what does that process look like? What does that feel like to the student?
Yeah. Good question. Oh my gosh. I know we've got like a time limit. I'm gonna like talk your ear off about this. I love having these conversations. So I'll try to take that piece by piece. So as far as students, like we'll focus on transfer students. So if you have transfer students that they are recognizing a concern that they're experiencing and don't know how to necessarily address that or get connected, a care report is a great place to self-refer, and we've seen that more and more in progressive semesters, that students are self-referring just to make us aware, like, hey, here's a challenge that I'm facing, and I just need someone to help me understand it better, help me address it, help me figure it out. every care report that comes in will get emailed to our team, and we read through every one. We kind of assess what the need is there and what the best response from our team is, and we'll then engage in outreach. So if a student self-refers, and let's say it really is about not knowing how to get connected to a particular resource, or not knowing how to navigate a particular system, and I know, Cheryl, your office and your colleagues are a great landing spot for that. But if they self-refer to us, we'll read through that, do outreach to the student, try to understand more what are the contours of that need, what are the things that they're already aware of, that they've already tried. I tell students all the time, we're not prescriptive in what we do. We're not going to just say like, okay, well, 90% of students that have this concern or this issue, we just tell them to do A, B, C, and D. So you just do the same, and good luck to you. We really try to understand the nuance and the context of a student's experience, so that we can devise what's going to work best. And that's a co-constructed thing of, does this make sense to you? Is this an action step that you're ready to take? If not, what's the barrier there? If I'm telling you that you need to have a conversation with someone in scholarships and financial aid, have you already done that? Who was that with? What came out of that conversation? So that I'm not like just telling you something that you already know or something you've already tried, so that we can kind of, again, try to get to the root of what you need to do next, and something that you're ready for and feel confident in doing. So we've seen a lot of students begin to self-refer, and we love that. Again, you've kind of shared our mantra, like, if people see something, we want them to say something, do something about it. And that goes for the individual student experience too. If I recognize that I have a need, a care report is a great, and I have nowhere else to go, or don't know where to start. A care report is a good place to begin. Now we work with partners across campus, so if we know that the student is a transfer student, and that becomes clear, we'll likely reach out to your office and say, do you know the student? Have you already been working with this student? And try to figure out what are those connection points that we can have in common, so that we're collectively working together to provide that student support. We don't see our team as the end all be all of like, well, if case management doesn't figure it out, it can't be figured out. We're really trying to bring in other campus partners like yourself and Vince and others to kind of figure out, okay, how do we best kind of provide, I think Dr. Hallenbeck likes to call it wraparound care to a student. Like, how do we do that best? So that addresses that first part of the question. Sorry, I told you I can talk about this for a long time. So if a student if a care report is submitted on a student, so they're the student that has the presenting concern, and a roommate or a faculty member or a staff member is the person that's recognizing that, and says, okay, I feel like we need to report this to the care team, so that they are, one, aware of it, and two, so that they can start to provide some of that care and support to students. Then it will come to me. It'll come to everyone on our team, just like every care report does. We will do an assessment of that concern. Sometimes that assessment is figuring out, is this student, is what they're experiencing something that might be potentially harmful to them, or might it be potentially harmful to somebody else? Might it be potentially harmful to the broader campus community? And sometimes that's true. And so it helps us know how we respond as a team, how we respond as a broader community to that concern. So we'll do that assessment, and then we'll begin outreach to the student to try to connect with them, try to understand what's that concern, and then trying to get them in for a meeting with a case manager, whether that's a case manager that's connected with their college. Sometimes students are talking with me based on what the need is. And then we'll work with that student. Like I said, we're not prescriptive in any way. It really is a co-constructed kind of care plan of like, what do we put together that's going to help you address this concern, whether it's, mental health is a key issue. Again, just like food insecurity is a key issue on college campuses across the country, mental health is also a key recognized issue for college students across the country and here at OSU. And so we'll talk through, what those challenges are, what that's looking like, how that's presenting itself in a student's life, in their behaviors and what they're thinking and what they're doing. And then we'll try to figure out how best to kind of provide that support, put some steps in place, some structures in place to help them along. And then you also mentioned if a student reports on somebody else, so they're a reporter of concern. One, I think it's important for everyone to know, like I said, every care report gets looked at. We don't just like discard them and say like, well, put that in the pile. We're not going to address that. We will assess everyone, we'll respond to everyone, whether that response is getting them to with case management or figuring out who else they're connected to and saying like, oh, well, they likely need to talk to their academic advisor about this issue of figuring out dropping a class or doing a retroactive withdrawal or whatever. And so we might kind of bring other partners to bear in doing that initial response. So I want everyone to know that we look at every care report. As the reporter, sometimes it can be it feels like it's a little bit of a black box of like, okay, well, I've sent this out to the ether and what happens with it next. So I think it's, like I said, important to know that we look at everyone, we respond to everyone, we provide outreach to everyone, whether that's through our office or through someone else the student is connected with. And there might be times where we follow up with the reporter to get more information. There might be some things that they kind of outline in that care report that we need to understand a little bit better, especially if it's a concern for a student's safety, either their safety or the safety of someone else. And so we might contact the reporter to get more information. Yeah, so and I think it's also probably important for me to let anybody who might report a student know that that we really try to honor that as best as we can, and yeah, we try to take a positive approach as we reach out to the student. Well, I'll say it this way: if a student gets a call about a concern, students can piece things together. We don't insult their intelligence. Students can piece that together. If the concern is something that is derived out of a conversation that they had with a student, right? Like if Cheryl, if you and I are talking and I say something that's of concern to you and you report it to the care team, and then the care team or our case manager reaches out to me, I might piece together just based upon my own experience, like, oh, I said this thing to Cheryl, therefore I kind of know that it's likely that Cheryl is probably the source of this care report. On our side, as a case management team, if that is of concern to the student, I always take a positive bend to that. Our case managers always take a positive bend to that, you know, of someone has noticed something, someone who cares about you and had concern for you has made us aware of that concern so that we can provide this outreach and support for you. And that's exactly what we want members of our community to do. They're doing exactly what we would want them to do in response to that. So it's important to us that we try to, like, as best we can, like, maintain the relationship between the student of concern and the reporter, because a lot of times the reporter is like, it's someone that they trust, it's someone that they've confided in. And we were talking about stigma earlier. I always encourage people, as they're having a conversation with a person of concern, like if you're talking with me, Cheryl, and you notice something of concern about me, of letting me know that you're going to file a care report on my behalf, to help me get connected. If that's appropriate to the situation, then we encourage reporters to do that too, so that they're aware, so that when we're doing outreach, it doesn't necessarily catch the person off guard. You've been upfront, you've acknowledged there's some concern here, and student support exists to help students that are dealing with those types of concerns. And so I'm going to fill out a care report, and I think you can expect someone from student support to reach out to you to provide you with some additional help and resources.
So you actually touched on one of the other things I wanted to touch on, and it goes back to that confidentiality piece, is that idea of that culture of trust that goes hand in hand with that culture of care.
Yeah.
I know many students, when they start talking about the challenges they're facing, they're like, well, I don't want anyone else to know.
Right.
And so anytime someone submits a care report and the student has expressed the concerns about that particular piece of their story being spread around, you know, it can be so challenging for that student, because they feel like in some ways betrayed by the person who potentially reported it and who violated that culture of trust that they have.
Yeah.
So if you were going to give any piece of advice to a student who was concerned about another student, or who was going through the process, or who anything involved with this care report process or this larger student support piece, you know, what would you tell them about how that goes hand in hand? Those two things go in hand, that trust and that care.
Yeah, excellent question. I want to be transparent. Anytime a care report is filed and a case is created, it becomes a part of a student's educational record. I know we have some concerns sometimes of like, oh my gosh, is this part of like a permanent record? Is there some sort of flag that goes up on my student profile? Are there other people that are going to know about this? So I want to address that. A care report does become a part of a student's educational record, but that is also an educational record that is protected under FERPA. And so, the student can have access to that. They can ask for access to that in writing. They can review it. They can, they can speak into it as they want and say, well, here's my side of that. I want this to be on record too. So that is a student's right to have access to it. I've mentioned Care Team. Care Team is a multidisciplinary group of professional staff here at OSU who are multidisciplinary. So we've got people that sit on Care Team from every college. We have people on Care Team that work in housing and residential life. We've got membership and Care Team with student accessibility services, university health, university counseling, select group of people, and they will have access to those Care Team cases and can review it. But again, that is a really small group. I think our group is maybe at 26. So it's a relatively small group of people that have access to to Care Team cases. And their role, and it really is on a need-to-know basis, their role in looking at that is helping us build connections for the student. Gosh, sorry, my little Teams is popping up, sorry. And yeah, like their work on a care team or on the care team is to help us make connections with the student and for the student, to help us know how do we best approach and build that wraparound care for each individual. And so their engagement in that case has a very specific purpose, and it's not something that they're sharing out. They're not going back to their colleagues in College of Arts and Sciences and be like, oh gosh, Cheryl Kleeman got her care report and here's all the skinny of what I know about that. It's really protected in that way. And then because it's protected under FERPA, that educational record is going to be released only to people that have proxy access, and students are involved in that. I mean, if there are people that you've given proxy access to and that high level of proxy access where they can discuss your educational record, we can discuss it with proxy. But again, students have been made aware of that, and they've designated their proxy person or people. Otherwise, their educational record would be released to anybody that the student has given written permission. And so again, the students had to sign off on that. So all that to say that students have agency in that. The care reports and care team cases and BCT cases are protected under FERPA. And so we're mindful of that. So I think that's important to know. So you mentioned kind of that culture of trust, and the student may have disclosed something that is highly sensitive to a particular individual. And that individual it's raised enough concern for that individual to say, I need to bring in some outside assistance to address this concern. I'll say that because it's part of a student's educational record and they can have access to it, that ultimately we cannot promise anonymity in that sense, right? We try to protect confidentiality, but we cannot promise anonymity. You do have the option when you're filling out a care report to not list your name. So if that is of high value to you and it's situationally something that you feel like you absolutely need to do, then you can. I am mindful and try to encourage students to, or reporters, I'll say reporters because it can be faculty and staff too, to really only reserve that in specific cases, because like I mentioned before, it's oftentimes really important for us as a team to connect back to the reporter, to gain extra context or to build that extra connection, to check on, I know, okay, you reported that you had this experience with a student last week. Have you had any interaction with them since? And where are they now? You know, how's this progressing in their life now? Is it getting worse? Is it, you know, has the initial concern kind of subsided? And so anyway, we do like to connect to reporters. So it's helpful for us to have that information. And like I said before, know that when, and it's very rare that a student really presses to know who the reporter is. Sometimes it happens, and like I said, they have the right to know, but my team and I will always take that positive bend of, here's, you know, if it's something that we cannot get around, then letting the student know, you know, Cheryl Kleeman was my colleague who filed this report out of concern for you, out of care for you, out of a desire to make sure that you are kind of connected to the full scope of supports and resources that we have available here. And I'll kind of ask, like, how does that, what's your response to that? You know, like knowing that Cheryl is the person that saw this need for you, and responded in this way, what does that do for you? What does that make? What are you thinking about that? And more often than not, you know, I worked with a student last year that was like, I mean, they said, I didn't even realize that person was mindful of me in that way. It was noticing me in that way. And I was like, it was this really cool moment of like, yeah, this person cares about you, is concerned about you. And so, like I said, we'll always take that positive approach and ask if it's really important for the student to know. We'll ask that too. Why is it real critical for you to know? You know, why is that a big driver? And we'll just kind of have an open discussion about it to try to, again, sort of try to preserve that relationship, preserve that trust. And like I said before, when reporters feel that it's appropriate, and I think in a lot of instances, and maybe most instances, it is appropriate to say, based on what you've shared with me, you know, we have a culture of care here at OSU that involves student support, the student support team, that involves care team. And I think we need to file a care report and start that process for you, out of the things you've shared. So anyway.
So the biggest takeaway that I'm getting from you is, just because you get contacted by student support and conduct does not mean you're in trouble.
Right.
It means someone cared about you enough to bring you to the attention of student support.
Yep.
What I'm also hearing is that, as far as the confidentiality piece, it's not something that every employee on campus is going to know about. It's not going to be readable where everybody can find it. It's going to be compartmentalized with specific individuals who have been assigned to be a part of a care team.
Yep.
So they don't need to worry about that. And anyone else that asks questions about it is not going to get an answer.
That's right. It's really neat to know. Yeah. Excuse me.
Oh, you're fine. So, I mean, I think it's important for our transfer students, especially, to know that whether they're living off campus, whether they're living in housing, whatever their situation is, what I'm hearing from you is that student support and conduct is there to help them.
Yeah.
Whatever the situation, wherever it occurred.
Yeah.
Well, yes, the things that occur on campus, just because something didn't occur on campus doesn't necessarily mean that it's not going to get addressed.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And that, as far as your office and your team and the folks who are here for our students to provide that wraparound care, you know, it's important for our students to understand that they're not alone.
Absolutely. Good summary, Cheryl. Oh my gosh. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's for students that are online only, we know we have those students too. We'll provide support for them as well. You know, I mean, they are OSU students, just like students that are here in Stillwater and taking their classes on campus. We might need to get creative, you know, about if they're at a far distance and maybe don't necessarily have immediate access. But if there are things that we can connect them to, whether that's you know, counseling that's available online or telehealth or whatever, we'll get creative about that. So even if it's someone that's online, we'll address that too. We want to make sure that they have a range of service as well, just like someone who's here at OSU Stillwater and based on campus.
Well, I hate to cut this short, but we're actually out of time.
Yeah, sure, of course. Like I said, I can talk about it so long.
And you know what? That's it. I think that's just as important for the students to hear because it means that you care.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, and I would encourage students. Like I said, I can talk about this for a long time. There's a lot of nuance to it. If you have questions about it, if there's something that's unclear, something that kind of comes out of our conversation this morning that sparks additional questions, oh my gosh, please reach out. You can connect to us through our website. You can fill out a care report too, but there's also a way just to email us, and that will get routed to us if there's a question about student support or a concern or wanting to get connected to a case manager. You can do that more directly too. It doesn't necessarily have to be care report based. So if you have questions, or questions come out of either this conversation or an experience you've had, and you want to get some clarification from me or from anyone on our team, oh my gosh, please call us, email us, stop by. Our case management team is embedded in different colleges, but I'm in Student Union 232, right, kind of across from the main campus life area. I call it we're like in a fish tank. It's like there's like two walls that are completely glass. So 232, you can always stop in, and I'd love to have a conversation with anyone.
Well, we tend to talk about a lot of serious stuff on our OK State Transfer Talks.
Yeah.
Because it's information students need to know and to feel safe knowing. But I always like to end with a smile. So yeah. Do you have a dad joke? Is there something that you want to share that will help us end with a smile?
Oh my gosh. I don't know if I have a dad joke. I'm a dog dad. I don't know. I don't have a good like dog dad joke. Yeah, I don't know.
What's your favorite thing about OSU?
Good question. I was just talking about this today. I was talking about it probably half an hour ago. A few favorite things. One thing that's coming up, I think, real soon in October is International Expo, right? Where we have a lot of international student organizations that are going to be cooking, preparing, and selling food from their country of origin. I love that event. I will make sure that I have like cash in hand or card in hand, and I'll walk in and be like, take all my money and I want to try every little thing. So that's coming up, I think, first week of October. So one of my absolute favorite things here at OSU, International Expo. The other thing, and I was just talking about this half an hour ago, is homecoming, and especially walk around. I think that's so unique and special to OSU and to the OSU experience. You mentioned at the very top of this that I'm working on my PhD at Baylor, and I was just laughing with a colleague of mine who did their undergrad at Baylor. Baylor's real proud of their homecoming, and it's great. And they're kind of one of their big key events is a parade, and I'm like, I think walk around beats the pants off of the Baylor parade any day of the week. I just think walk around is so cool. I do it every year outside of COVID. I think I've come to it every year, and will this year, and I just love it. So yeah, homecoming and especially walk around is my absolute favorite thing. And International Expo, so look for that. I'm sure it's probably posted on Campus Link and other places too. The date escapes me. I think it's like October 5th or 6th. I feel like I have it marked on a calendar somewhere. It's so cool. So hopefully I'll see some of you there. If you see me, probably you'll see me with like piles of like Ethiopian food. I love it. So
very cool. Well, in light of the conversation we just had, and because I love dad jokes, what do you call a conversation between two artichokes?
I have no idea.
A heart to heart.
Ah, that's fun. You know what? Maybe I do have a dad joke. Well, okay, this comes from like my undergrad alma mater. And let's see. What did the buffalo say to his child when dropping him off at college?
Oh, I know this one, but go ahead and tell us.
Bison. There's my dad joke. See, it came to me. Yeah,
Yes.
my undergrad institution, our mascot is the bison. So I think I probably had that tucked away in my brain for quite a long time. Yep.
Well, thank you so much, Scott. It was truly a pleasure to speak to
Yeah,
you
same
and to hear
here.
your passion about serving students and making sure that our students feel supported. And that concludes our session. And as always, go Pokes.
Go Pokes. See y'all. Thanks so much.